When we're talking about reputation, we need to understand just how delicate this thing is, because it is. It is, after all, very delicate, because you spend your entire life trying to build up your reputation. Yet it only takes one bad decision to tear it down. And so that's how these things work. That's the importance of character. Because again, that character is what's building your reputation, and that reputation is what gives you a good name and shines light onto your family's name. And not only is it affecting the way people look at you and view you, but it's also having effect on the way people view your entire family. I think that it would do us well to try and keep that in mind. And that's what it looks like to raise up your children in the way that they should go. This is done out of love. And the one who loves all knows this. And so we really ought to take his advice when it comes to the way to handle this thing called parenting. Do as thou wilt. That's the whole of today's law. Doesn't work. Hey, good morning and welcome back to Proving Proverbs. I am Brad Casper, and this is where we read the text, absorb the knowledge, display the wisdom, and reap the blessings. Not sure about you, but I'm all about those blessings. And that's what we are promised if we implement these things into our life and we follow these instructions, that ultimately we will walk in blessings in this life. And that's what Proving Proverbs is all about. It's all about putting that concept to the test. And so this week we're diving back into chapter 22, and since about the halfway point, we've been dialing in on one key word that sums up the entirety of the chapter. And I have found this to be a much better approach, because I think that these chapters are so rich with practical insights that it's at least for me, difficult to try and remember it all and to try and apply it all as you go about your week. And so I think that picking one word and allowing that word to permeate up out of meditation after thinking about the chapter, that this is a better approach, because then we can just focus on this one word and we can keep it in the forefront of our mind as we carry about our week. And I know that personally, this seems to work, a lot better. And then collectively over time, hopefully you're building better character traits. And by the end of this thing, hopefully you'll be much better than you were before you started. So that's what it's all about here. And this week, that word is character, or reputation. Because the reality is, your character is building your reputation, and your reputation is what defines your good name. And not only your name as an individual, but also, more importantly, even your name in terms of your family name. Because your conduct and the way that you are viewed, your reputation, well, it reflects onto your family name. And I just think that we should all have a respect for our family name that leads us to desire to represent it in a way that is guided by things of good character. And when you're doing that, the reputation that you're building is a good reputation. And when you have a good reputation, that looks good on your family name. I mean, I think that we only have to look to examples with like younger kids to see how this can go all wrong, because you could have a child who is an absolute troublemaker, and his actions result in a bad reputation, and then that bad reputation gets reflected onto the family, even if the family is a good family, and a family that deserves respect, but it can taint the family name. And that's all because of one individual's actions and conduct. So it's really important to keep this in mind, and it's something that I try to instill in my boys. That not only are you trying to build a good reputation for yourself through your actions and the way that you carry yourself, but you're also representing our family name, when you're out there doing these things. And so it's important to have a respect for your family name, and that respect for your family name should help guide you in building your reputation in a way that shines, good light onto that family name. And, when you're younger, a lot of times this just isn't something that you concern yourself with, right? And so it's something that, I know from my own personal experiences that when I was younger, I didn't really care too much about that. And, for a long time, I carried what probably was, not so great of a reputation. But the good thing is, as long as you're still breathing, you still have a chance to redeem yourself and to hopefully earn, a good reputation back. It's much easier to just build a good reputation and to carry that with you through your life. But, for a lot of us, we tend to look different in our adult years than we did in our younger years. And so we have to try and, tear down that old reputation and to build a new one, which, again, can also be done. And honestly, with that, sometimes carries its own level of respect, because people look at that and think, wow, he used to be this way and look at him now. And so, that, again, these things are all just part of life experience. It's different for us all. And I think that ultimately it all will end up leading you to who you were meant to be in the end. If this is something that you focus your attention on and that you care about. And I think that, our character is definitely one of those things that we should be concerned with. Now, I think that we're living in interesting times now, though, because of things such as social media and, all the different things that come along with it. It has created this interesting dynamic, because for a lot of people, instead of building an authentic reputation, what they're building is this persona of who they want people to think they are or how they want people to view them. And this, in many ways, is a complete disservice to your individuality and who you were intended to be, because your uniqueness that's in your own individuality is something that should be embraced. But I think oftentimes we sacrifice that for this false persona that we think is what people would rather see from us. And, that's just another one of these things that I think that these younger generations are growing up with today. And it's a shame, because, that authentic, true self is something that is to be, admired and embraced. But that's just simply, in many ways, not what that looks like in terms of social media. And so, with that, it's created this very interesting dynamic. And then also, the fact that these kids today are constantly faced with the possibility that the things they're doing are being recorded. This also presents a bit of a problem, because unknowingly something could be recorded and put out into internet land that could, destroy your reputation. And so I think for, a lot of these younger generations, that's something that they, are continually having to contend with. If there's a possibility that you're constantly being recorded, well, most likely you're probably going to react in different ways than what you would naturally. And so it creates this thing that I don't think was previously there in, at least like my growing up. And so I would say it's a challenge. And not only is that a challenge, but then you also have things out there today like OnlyFans, where you have young women that are just completely destroying their reputations for attention. And I think a lot of times that's because they were lacking it at some point in their life. And so through this, they're now trying to gain that attention that they so desperately needed at some point in their life. And in so doing, they are wrecking their reputation for the future. Because the reality is, if someone in that position turns things around and, starts to build a life, well, those things can most certainly come back to haunt you. And so it's just very important, I think, that we're always cognizant of the fact that our reputation is always on the line, and it is continually being built by our actions and reactions. And so if we keep this in mind, I think it can help steer us in the right direction. And again, this very first verse here in chapter 22, a good name is more desirable than great wealth. The respect of others is better than silver or gold. I think that there is a lot of truth in that. And, once your name has been wrecked, it can be very difficult to build credibility back up to where you're respected or trusted. And, that's very important. And so that's why character ultimately plays into your reputation, and your reputation ultimately plays into your good name. And so it's just something that I think is of utmost importance, and something that's lacking out there today. And so that's the focus word for the week. 22 starts out, a good name is more desirable than great wealth. The respect of others is better than silver or gold. Rich and poor are found together. Yahweh has made them all. The discreet man sees danger and takes shelter. The ignorant go forward and pay it forward. The reward of humility is the fear of Yahweh, riches, honor, and life. Thorns and snares line the path of the willful. He who values his life will keep his distance. Instruct the child in the ways he should go, and when he grows old, he will not leave it. The rich man lords it over the poor. The borrower is the lender's slave. He who sows injustice reaps disaster, and the rod of his anger falls on himself. A blessing awaits the man who is kindly, since he shares his bread with the poor. Expel the mocker, and strife goes too. Dispute and abuse die down. Yahweh loves the pure in heart. Friend to the king is the man of gracious speech. The eyes of Yahweh see knowledge safe preserved. but he confounds the words of liars. There is a lion inside, says the idler. I shall be killed in the street. The mouth of the alien woman is a deep pit. Into it falls the man who Yahweh detests. Innate in the heart of a child is folly. Judicious beating will rid him of it. Oppress the poor and you enrich him. Give to him rich and you make him poor. These are the collection of the sages. Starting out verse 17, give ear to my words and apply your heart to knowing them, for it will be a delight to keep them deep within you, to have them already on your lips, so that your trust may be in Yahweh. Today I propose to make your way known to you. Have I not written for you 30 chapters of advice and knowledge for you to be able to expound on the truth, and with sound words to answer those who question you? Because a man is poor, do not therefore cheat him, nor at the city gate oppress anybody in affliction. For Yahweh takes up their cause and extorts the life of their extortioners. Make friends with no man who gives way to anger. Make no hasty-tempered man a companion of yours. For fear you learn from his behavior, and in his risk the loss of your own life. Do not be one of those who go guarantor, who go surety for debts. If you have no means of paying, you will find your bed taken from under you. Do not displace the ancient landmark set by your ancestors. You see some man sharp at business, he will come to serve kings. Not for him the service of obscure people. And so, some interesting verses in there that I think are key to, raising up children. And, this is definitely one of the more popular ones that I think, a lot of people think of. Instruct a child in the way he should go, and when he grows old, he will not leave it. And I think that there is a lot of truth to that. And I think that by instilling these type of things in children from a very young age, it just makes it that much easier for them to understand and to grow into these things as they get older. And I know it's not very popular today here as far as correction with children, and that it is almost looked down upon, different means of discipline in regards to raising children. But I think we can see what happens when we veer away from correction and discipline in our children. And ultimately what ends up happening is these kids, without that correction, the worst of their human nature is oftentimes what you'll see on display when they get older, because they weren't corrected and those things weren't dealt with at a early age. And so I think a lot of what we see in society today is directly related to that. It's related to the fact that disciplining your children is something that's almost looked down upon today. And in many ways, it's something that the system has robbed the parents of and the ability of doing. And when you do this on a collective level, society starts to break down when these children without correction and discipline become adults. And so I don't think we have to look very far under the surface to see, what that results in society. 15, innate in the heart of a child is folly. Judicious beating will rid him of it. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, how we are instructed to deal with these things in terms of raising children. And unfortunately, that type of thing is frowned upon today. But when we veer away from these clear instructions, I think that's when you start to see these societal breakdowns, all around you. And I think that much of what we see in relationship to those things can go back to this. Because when there is correction and discipline lacking, well then, look, the worst in these children's human nature will be what's on display when they become adults. When all of these things have gone unchecked and they have not been put in their place and corrected, those things are what are going to, permeate to the top. And that's what you're going to see in society. And I think we don't have to look too far out there today to see it alive and doing well. And so it's just another one of these realities that, these are words of truth, and they do not change with time. Just because the systems around us change, it doesn't mean that these standards change. And so these are, all things of practical wisdom that should be applied to our lives. And that includes disciplining our children and instilling in them the importance of character and how their character builds their reputation, and that reputation reflects back on their family name. And so anyway, that's all I got for this week. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you have, please like the video, comment. I'd love to hear from you. Any interaction would be greatly appreciated. It helps to get it out to more and more people. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, and I will see you again next Sunday, 9 a.m. Eastern. This is Proving Proverbs. I am Brad Casper. Until then, we're out.